Okay, so we're going to be doing a tier list on CitizenCon 2953. This video is going to be a bit different to my usual videos. It's not going to be scripted and there's going to be a lot of opinions. Yeah, so CitizenCon 2953 was a couple of weeks ago now. It was a 2-day event. There was a lot in there. This tier list really is to kind of summarize what I thought were the key things in that. This isn't by all means a comprehensive list of everything in CitizenCon. I think I've captured the majority of things, and again, this is all just my opinion, so anything I've missed, anything that you don't agree with, let me know in the comments. First thing we're going to start off with is the Star Engine spline. So this was an absolutely cracking start to the show. This was a 1 billion kilometer single spline, which was basically demonstrating Star Citizen, how enormous it is, you know, how amazing the engine is, that there are no loading screens, that you can kind of jump from place to place across the universe to different planets, different ships. It showed a lot of the core gameplay. It was absolutely incredible. I think it was 25-30 minutes long. Definitely worth a watch. Really great start. S tier without a doubt. Next, quite a funny one. Before day one, there were a bunch of people T-posing in the crowd, which I thought was quite funny. You know, solid B tier for that one. And then we got into, I suppose, the first part of day one, which was shaping the verse, which is basically a bunch of tech panels just showing off a lot of the kind of technology in engine that they're working on. So first one was kind of updates to weather. So yeah, basically they've included a lot of detail to volumetric clouds. They've added fog, light shafts. Great little addition to the game. This is going to make all the planets look that little bit nicer. I don't think it's game changing, so for that I'm just going to drop it in C tier. I think it's definitely a nice little addition, but not something that we absolutely need. Then a bit later on we moved on to dynamic fire. This is basically a fire engine. No, it's not a fire engine. Details how fire will spread and propagate throughout an environment. It's really interesting because in each ship, for example, each surface within your ship will have physical properties which will help stimulate how the fire will spread. So for example, more flammable materials and what's beneath them, you know, the fire is going to spread more quickly. Fire will also produce heat and smoke. You'll need to extinguish that, or you'll need to vent that part of the ship to put the fire out, and you'll need to wear appropriate protective gear to do that. So I think this is actually A tier. The reason for that is it feeds into a lot of the multi-crew gameplay, which we'll come on to a little bit later on. So the planet gen, you know, they're improving the way the planets are modelled. So they're including, you know, geology, temperature, biome maps, all that kind of thing, in an effort to make the planets just a bit more varied and unique. They've also got a new Vulkan renderer, which they talked about. And on the lighting side, they've got a new global illumination system based on AMD GL 1.0. This essentially is just increasing the fidelity of the light simulation. So they kind of showed at the moment they have one light probe in the middle of a room, but now they're increasing the amount of light probes massively to give you a much higher kind of resolution to the light map within a room. So this should make the lighting a lot more realistic and a lot more reactive. So I think the lighting is kind of mid B tier. So again, this is going to make the game look a lot nicer, but it's not necessarily going to change the world. So next we've got water, blood, sweat, and tears. So this, again, I'm combining a few elements here, but one was kind of water physics. So again, they're making the water look a lot more realistic and be a lot more physically reactive. And they show kind of the Gladius flying over the water and how that leaves a wake behind it. That looked really cool. And kind of adding dynamic blood, sweat, and tears to the characters. So these aren't pre-rendered animations. So when you get injured and you're bleeding, or when your character's sweating, that's all now dynamically simulated and should look a lot more realistic and kind of should look great in cutscenes as well. So again, similar to the previous two, I think this is C tier. It's not going to change the game, but it is going to make it look a lot nicer. Yeah, so next we've got Star Cloth and Star Hair. This is basically simulating the properties of clothes and hair. So for Star Cloth, this is how clothes sit on the player's body. They had a really funny demo where they showed like a football going around this guy's legs under the gown. It shows how the cloth reacts. So what they're doing here is they're properly simulating each layer of cloth and the physical properties it has, so it shouldn't kind of clip through itself or clip through the player. They also have done a similar thing with hair, that they're starting to model individual strands of hair using Cossarat rods, they said, to kind of better model all the twists and bends in the hair. They also said they've got loads of new hairstyles coming, loads of new shaders. Yeah, they spent a long time on the hair. Everyone really seemed to love this, and in day 2 they also touched on style cloth and style hair. I wasn't too fussed about this, so again I'm going to drop it into detail. Hit me in the comments if you wish. Next was Maelstrom. I thought this was really cool. So this is a physics-based destruction system. So all, you know, the environments, the ships now, rather than have kind of, again, any pre-rendered, you know, destruction maps, it's all calculated from a physics-based model instead of an HP-based model. Individual parts and geometry can now be broken in a realistic and intuitive way. I think it looks amazing. It's going to lead to some really interesting gameplay. Yeah, so I'm going to put that in beta. Then they moved on to some audio enhancements, so they're putting a load of new audio effects in to make the weapons feel a bit beefier. And for ship combat and on foot combat, you know, if you're in the vacuum of space, the sound is only going to propagate either through, you know, the floor or through your ship. They're including that now to make you feel a lot more isolated when you're in combat. I think this is a good addition to the game. It is going to help with immersion and help you feel that isolation, but I don't think it's anything game changing, and I'm not sure how ship combat is going to feel if you can only really hear what's going on inside your ship. So for that reason I'm going to put it kind of... And then the final part of this segment was server meshing. Where do we even start? So server meshing is something we've been waiting for a very long time. CIG have been tweaking, adding things to the game over a number of years to make server meshing work. The demo was absolutely incredible. So the demo showed, and it was a very simple demo. One single area can be split up into 3 different sub areas, each controlled by a different server, and the, you know, players' objects can travel and interact with each other kind of seamlessly across those server boundaries. This is massively going to change the game. It's going to make the game run a lot smoother. It's going to mean you can have, rather than just one server controlling 100 characters, and, you know, all of the problems with bottlenecking, being able to scale the game up into kind of one big universe that we all share, all the assistance that goes along with that, the replication layer. So if one server crashes, you know, the system can be brought back online. It's absolutely amazing. This is going to change Star Citizen. It could even change gaming. So for that reason, it's going kind of high S tier. So that's the end of the first panel. We then moved on to Fix It and Fly It. So the first thing that I want to kind of talk about is multi-crew gameplay. So they showed off for larger ships will have a resource network, which will kind of lead to emergent engineer gameplay. So you'll need to manage your ship's power balance and crew priorities. There's a really cool map they showed, which showed kind of a nodal model of the ship network, the state of each item and the connections between. This is going to form the core of engineer gameplay. It kind of reminded me of Faster Than Light, chaos that can ensue in trying to manage your ship in Faster Than Light. And I think it's absolutely perfect for kind of the Star Citizen multi-crew gameplay. You can use this to track doors to see who's moving around the ship. You can also control doors, you can make pathways, you can vent sections of the ship. This won't really affect single-seater ships. This is more for kind of bigger multi-crew ships. They also said that a large ships won't have enough power to power everything at once, so you'll have to prioritize which systems you want to provide power to. They also talked about ship batteries, which can give you like a temporary power boost. There's a full gameplay segment where they went up against Iglesias and they tried to manage the ship. Didn't go quite well for them. It was an amazing demonstration of what multi-crew gameplay can do, and it's worth noting that the same gameplay will be used for base building as well. If you build a base, it will have a very similar resource network. I think this is absolutely game changing for Star Citizen for multi-crew gameplay. So for that reason, it's definitely mid S tier. Then after Fix It and Fly It, we moved on to Talking Ship, which was kind of an update on all of the various ships of Star Citizen. It started off really well with a advert for the A1. I really like the ship ads generally. So this was really cool to see. So I'm going to put that in the kind of bottom of C tier. Next, we moved on to the Zeus. So they gave a bit of a history behind the Zeus and the ship's heritage. People have been calling this the Space Dorito. It's always cool to see a new ship. They unveiled 3 different variants for it. The ES, which is the kind of essential explorer, the MR, which was an interceptor, and the CL Clipper, which was a cargo ship. I think it looks really cool. Also, it's always good to see new ships. So I'm going to put that in kind of middle of B tier. After this, they then talked about the new cutter variant. So it's a variant of the cutter for scanning gameplay. So it'll have a a size, I think it was a size 2 scanner. It had better power plant and a cooler and a scanning station. And they also talked a little bit about the future of scanning gameplay in this part, combining the current scanning system. So at the moment you can do like a scan ping or a directional scan. They're combining both of that into a new system where you can either, again, it has two elements. One is passive scanning, which kind of lets you see what's in your immediate area without revealing yourself, whereas you can do an active scan, requires a bit more energy, makes you visible, but it helps you see things that are much further away. And if you do spot anything, you can also use it to markers that you can quantum travel to. So yeah, the cutter look. I'm not a huge fan of the cutter, and I don't think I'm going to be a huge fan of scanning gameplay. So for that reason, I'm just going to drop this in C tier. Banner Merchant Man. This is a favourite ship. People have been waiting for the Banner Merchant Man for a very long time. The team kind of detailed they've had some challenges with staff issues, recruiting new staff, kind of losing expertise, which is why the Merchant Man's taken so long. They basically gave us a bit of a recap as to where the Merchant Man's at. It's nothing really that we hadn't seen before, so I really like the Merchant Man. It was nice to get an update on where it's at, but it wasn't really anything new or groundbreaking, so I'm just going to drop that in C tier as a nice to have. So they then went on to reveal a load of new ships, 12 new ships to be exact. Some of them we knew about, some of them we didn't or we shouldn't have known about. 12 new ships all coming within the next 12 months, they said. Really cool little reveal. We always like to see new ships in Star Citizen. Solid B tier. At the end of this, they revealed the Polaris. Got a really big applause from the crowd. They then showed a white box of the Polaris. They showed a really cool trailer of it firing some torpedoes. Again, everyone loved that. So I think that was back end of A tier. So the next panel was navigating the universe. So to start with, so this is basically a massive UI update of the HUD and of the map. They're redesigning the HUD. They're adding a lot of mission UI markers. You can now kind of scan ping on foot to show any enemies nearby. And there's a brand new mobi-glass interface. This is all stuff that the game needs at the moment. It's quite difficult if you're going somewhere new. You don't have a mini-map. If you go to Orison, for example, you might get a bit lost looking for Cousin Crows. So I think this stuff's all going to be really, really welcome. So that's going to, it's a solid B tier, that one. After this, they then revealed the new star map. So it's now a fully live 3D map, which maps not only your immediate environment, but you can zoom all the way out into the star map. This is a huge quality of life improvement. As we all know, the star map at the moment is a bit clunky, but difficult to use sometimes. You can set your destination, you can save waypoints, you can share and sell these waypoints if you want to. The map also applies to your ship. If you have a large ship, you can see all the individual floors. You can zoom in and out. This is one big unified map. Everything you'd want and expect from a mini map. So yeah, solid quality of life improvement. Definitely deserves to be in the A tier. So now we moved on to day 2 of CitizenCon, which kicked off with character advancement. So they started by kind of showing us the design philosophy for all of the characters in the Pyro system. Everything in Pyro is based on functionality and survivability. So they showed that, a load of clothing, a load of helmets. They showed some cool pouches which you can add to your clothing for more storage space. C tier. So this art style is going to separate the Pyro from the Stanton system. We then moved on to the new criminal gangs. At the moment, we really only have 9 tails in the Stanton system, and there are going to be at least 3 new criminal gangs. For example, the Headhunters and the Dusters. They've got some slightly different art styles, which they showed us, and can end up working for these criminal gangs. They have some unique armor which you can unlock by working for them, which have kind of different functionalities as well. So, for example, heavy armor is more protected, but you have less visibility. Just noticed that should be in the C tier, and the lighting should be in the B tier. So let me just swap that around. And then heads. So they've made what they call a head DNA pool. So they've essentially scanned a lot of different people's heads. So you can choose all the best elements you like from the DNA pool, mix and match it. You can then add skin tones, a hugely expanded character creator tool, where you can pick all the features that you want from the pool, and you can also modify those features. Personally, I will probably be wearing armor a lot of the time, so I won't really see my own face. So for me, again, really great addition, but D tier. Really great moment in CitizenCon. So following the Starcloth demo with the football, in between shows, Jared was down on the ground doing a live demonstration of Starcloth, which was really funny. Jared brought a lot of energy to the show, so for that he gets S tier status. So we then moved on to life in first person. So the first part of this was all around traversal and movement. So we've got a new kind of 0G movement. You can kind of whiz around in 0G a lot more fluidly than you can at the moment. And there are also grips, so you can kind of land, and you can land on surfaces and ships, and you can crawl around. They also showed you can now rotate while prone and not kind of be restricted in any direction. They're improving all the environmental interactions, so with ladders, you can kind of jump on and off them a lot more fluidly. Generally, they're making the movement a lot more responsive, so the acceleration curve is going to be a bit faster, and you can slide around. There'll be new interaction prompts on the screen. So for example, interacting with an object, there will now be an interaction wheel rather than the kind of clunky list system. And there is now a new looting screen whenever you kill someone and loot them, which I'm sure will make life a lot easier. I'm going to put this in beta because I am not sure on the changes to the sliding and the acceleration curve. I'm not super keen on the the ultra fast running around sliding FPS gameplay. I like things to be a bit slower. So I'll be interested to see where they take this. So next was a lot of updates on first person combat. So there are going to be some new takedowns, which are kind of skill based, so that the more you use them, the more proficient you'll get with them. Restraints, which are going to be really important for bounty hunting gameplay. I'm really looking forward to that. They're adding weapon degradation, wear and tear. So if your weapon starts to degrade, it will stop smoking while you're firing it, and you'll start getting misfires. Changing the weapon recoil balance. They're improving some of the aim down sight animations to make it a bit smoother rather than the linear point A to point B. There are these really cool new vault weapons which require heat management. It reminded me a bit like Mass Effect 1, where you've got infinite ammo but you can't just keep on firing, you have to manage your heat effectively to keep firing. So they're improving optics now, so all the optics are physically simulated, so when you look down a sight, if another player were to look down your optic, they would see the same thing as you. They're improving all of the audio and making all the weapons a bit beefier, and they're also adding a reload from backpack. So if you do have ammo which isn't equipped but it's in your backpack, you can still get a reload for it, but it's just a bit of a longer animation. Dynamic crosshair, which kind of moves with your weapon, and they're also increasing the time to kill for PvP. They're saying this will give a higher skill ceiling and reduce unfair deaths. I can kind of see where they're coming from here. One of the most frustrating things in Star Citizen is dying from like a single stray bullet, and given that this is going to be a huge multiplayer experience, I think having a slightly higher time to kill is going to make the game a bit interesting. So all of these changes to first person combat are really welcome. Again, it's going to make gameplay a lot more varied. So all of these changes are quite welcome. It's going to bring the game a lot more in line with a kind of modern FPS. So I'm going to drop that in beta. Next is combat AI. All the AI now are going to have a number of traits which will affect their behavior. So for example, if an AI has an aggressive trait, it will more likely to push you. If it's cautious, it'll be less likely to. We're also getting AI crew members to help, I'm assuming, with either your kind of multi-crew ship experience or to help you come down and play a bunker out. They showed that AI will kind of respond a bit more dynamically to the environment, avoid hazards like fire or grenades, and they will try and revive their teammates. I think this one is a really important gameplay addition. One of the things I worry about in Star Citizen is that the bunkers can get a bit samey after a while, and I think having a more intelligent, more varied AI kind of will really help this. So for that reason, I think this is an A tier. So next we moved onto the taking flight panel, which was a kind of a general update on ship cockpits, the weapon system, master modes, and the aerodynamics model. So first, kind of the ship UI and cockpits. They're making a lot of changes here. So they're adding shortcuts for physicalized buttons. They're adding over 100 customizable key bindings. So rather than having to click on your MFD and find the setting you want, you can map it all. They're making the ship feel a lot more reactive, so the G-forces will kind of cause your head to move side to side. There'll also be some screen particles to show that you're moving. Master modes, they give a bit of a summary as to what master modes do. So you've kind of got two modes now. SEM mode, you're limited to your SEM speed. You can boost this a bit with the afterburner, but generally you're slowed quite down. In this mode is when you would do the majority of gameplay, so when you're fighting, when you're mining, stuff like that. So because the whole game is slowed down, kind of encourages everyone to close up a bit more. There's then navigation mode, which is for traversal. So in this mode you don't have shields or weapons, but you do have a much higher speed. So you're much faster, but you're very vulnerable. And you can also quantum travel in navigation mode. Quantum travel is now going to be fully physicalized. So at the moment you kind of teleport along a spline. whereas instead it's going to be completely physics based. When you enter quantum travel now, the ship is going to be subject to quantum travel forces, so you need to act to stabilize the ship and establish a bubble. If you fail to establish a bubble, you'll drop out of quantum drive, your ship will be dead for a few seconds while it recovers. So this is going to add a bit more dimensionality to quantum travel. It's going to make picking a quantum drive a bit more important to make sure you're getting the right one for your needs. You're also going to be able to do a quantum boost, which is kind of a short range jump. So instead of traveling 100 kilometers from point to point as you do at the moment, you can do a quantum boost. You don't need an nav point for it, but the quantum boost is much slower compared to full quantum travel. The bubble itself during the boost won't stabilize, so you'll have to manage those quantum forces the entire time. So these changes are really going to affect the feel of the game, especially when you're dogfighting. So at the moment, the ships are really quick. They can accelerate really fast to quite a high top speed. Some of the distances can be quite large, even though weapon ranges are fairly small. So this should slow everything down and kind of force the ships to group together a lot more closely when they're engaging each other, which kind of should lead to kind of more fun gameplay, I suppose. And theoretically, it should have it should be easy to play but hard to master, so it should have quite a high skill ceiling. So I think because of that, this is definitely an S tier change. So weapon and aiming system. So to complement master modes, the weapon system is also going to change. So at the moment, when you fire your weapons, your projectiles have a fixed range. The kind of scrapping that and adding weapon spread instead. You'll be able to engage at much longer distances, but you won't necessarily be able to land all of your shots due to the weapon spread. It's interesting because it means smaller ships you'll have to pick and choose your shots carefully or get a bit closer, whereas larger ships you can afford to engage those at a longer distance because they're physically larger, the weapon spread doesn't impact it as much. They're removing N-1 gimbaling on weapons. So at the moment, if you have a size 3 pin hardpoint and you want to gimbal it, you can only fit a size 2 pin. Getting rid of that, so you can have a size 3 gimbaled weapon on a size 3 hardpoint. And they're also adding precision targeting mode. So this essentially will reduce the RPM of the weapon, so this will reduce the firing speed, also reducing the DPS, but it allows you to take more accurate long range shots. And they kind of showed how this could work against a hammerhead, how you can target individual turrets and take them out. I think that's going to be a very welcome addition to the game. It's going to complement master modes, so this isn't quite an S tier on its own, but it is necessary to achieve that, so I'm going to put this in A tier. They also talked about flight AI, so they've used a lot of player data to train a new AI. It's got a few different modes. It can intercept, strafe, joust or chase, so it will use all of those kind of abilities in combat, and it can also disengage if it feels it needs to. So for example, with the hammerhead, once all its weapons are destroyed, it realizes it needs to get away. So again, similar to what we said with the FPS AI, we really do need this flight AI to keep the game interesting from a PvE point of view, to make the game more varied. So I think that is again an A tier addition. There's a new aerodynamic flight model, so when you're in atmosphere, the game is going to play much more like a flight sim. So you need to rely on your control surfaces, not your thrusters, to maneuver your ship. If you fly too slowly, you won't have enough air flowing over the control surfaces, and you won't be able to kind of have authority over your ship, or you'll stall. And to stop, you'll need to kind of purposely stall the ship, and at that point the thruster will take over and the ship will hover. But the thrusters don't work very well in atmosphere. They can only hover for so long, so you'll need to land your ship shortly after that. For ships like the Gladius, which are quite small and which have control surfaces, I think this is going to be amazing in atmosphere. For ships which don't really have control surfaces, maybe the Cutlass Black, that is probably going to struggle in atmosphere, and much larger ships are definitely going to need their VTOL mode to be able to take off. I think this is going to change ship combat. It's going to draw even more differences between space and atmosphere combat than we have now. So for that, I think this is adding a lot of gameplay variety and is an A tier addition. The next panel was Living on the Edge, which all kind of followed a similar theme. They talked about how they're kind of making player environments that tell a story and give a lot of gameplay options. Most environments you should be able to either go in guns blazing or pick a stealthy route through a hidden path. There'll be a reputation system, so you can only enter certain environments when you have a certain social status. If not, you'll have to kind of either fight your way in or sneak your way in. The rep system is also going to give you access to certain items or gear that you wouldn't get access to otherwise. There'll also be certain quest givers that you can get access to. They've hugely expanded the amount of outpost modules and archetypes that they have. So during outpost creation, there'll be a lot more building blocks to choose from. New derelict settlements, which will kind of support a number of gameplay loops, and there'll be a lot more kind of general diversity among outposts and around worlds. There's also a lot of stations in Pyro, 26 stations in total. Some of them are run down, some of them completely abandoned. They showed one called Checkmate Station, which just looked incredible. So each station is controlled by a different faction, so that rep system is going to be quite important. There'll be a lot of places to explore in the station. There'll be hazards, there'll be novel routes like maintenance hatches for you to get around. It looked like the station itself is almost its own kind of mini open world within the world of Star Citizen. There'll be multiple EVA points for you to access the station, so you don't have to go in just through the front door. So space stations will have abandoned areas, or there are some stations that are entirely abandoned. So this is essentially kind of a high risk, high reward area, which promotes a lot of PvP and PvE. So there's quite a lot in Living on the Edge panel. Again, I think this is going to add a lot of variety to the game. It looked incredible, so that is an S tier. Now we move on to the final panel, which is Destination Adventure Distribution Centers. So these are going to be the largest kind of ground-based locations outside of landing zones. They'll be the hub for a lot of mission-based gameplay. They've got multiple landing zones, they've got their own road network around them for you to travel. Each one is owned by a different faction and it will be specialised. So for example, a Grey Cat distribution centre would be a lot more focused around manufacturing and resources, and would be less heavily defended than say an EUU military distribution centre. They'll all have a corporate office space which will have your mission givers, areas to pick up and drop off packages for the mission gameplay. But I think the really big thing is that these locations will have raids. So a raid will be kind of a large team, high risk, high reward mission. One example is that you have to break into a room and steal some valuable cargo, or you have to assassinate someone, or you have to eliminate everyone on the distribution center. You can tackle these in different ways, so you could be aggressive or stealthy, and these raids can also trigger dynamic events, so other players could turn up and try and stop you and support the security services, which would lead to some really interesting gameplay. There'll also be some gameplay puzzles. They showed one of using a tractor beam to make a path across the chasm. The idea of the raids and the cargo centres, I think, is going to be again another amazing addition, and that is easily S tier. Freight elevators, hangars, we've known about these for a long time, and it was great to see kind of a demo showing how it will work. So the cargo elevator is used to load and unload cargo from your ship to the station, instead of it kind of magically happening at the moment. They show the cargo trolley, which will speed up loading and unloading. You can also store and retrieve vehicles on the elevator, which is a really big quality of life improvement. At the moment, you have to kind of travel somewhere and summon a vehicle instead. So generally, your local inventory will now be accessed through the elevator, so whether it be cargo, ship parts, personal weapons. The hangar will now become the place that you outfit and kind of maintain your ship. So if you buy some new weapons for your ship, rather than equip them through the menu, you'll have to do it through the hangar. So then they showed base building, which will allow players to claim their own parcel of land and build on it. There are two parts to base building. First is planning ahead, figuring out what you want to build, what the materials are, and getting the blueprints. So you'll need to buy blueprints, and you can also research different variations of blueprints, and you'll need materials to be able to build anything. There are different securities, so a high security planet you have to pay a rent, your base is invulnerable to attack. On a medium security planet you do pay a rent, but you're not invulnerable. There are some local defences that will turn up and help on an escalating basis, and there are lawless planets where there's no protection at all, but you don't have to pay any rent for the claim. You basically protect your base with whatever base defences you build. You'll need equipment to build structures, so the larger structures can only be built with the Pioneer, and there are also kind of ground vehicles or other tools to build smaller buildings. There'll also be a resource network in your base, similar to what we saw with the ship gameplay demo, and you'll need to link generators to consumers. So the hangar and freight elevator is going to add a lot more immersion to the game. That's going to go in A tier. I think if base building's done right, it's going to be a really interesting gameplay loop. I can see there being some really cool things players will be able to build. I can see players assaulting each other's bases. I can see some players just wanting to be completely self-sufficient. So I think this has potential to be absolutely incredible. And then last but not least, there was the Squadron 42 trailer, Chris revealed that Squadron 42 was feature complete. He didn't say when it was coming out. As you may or may not know, Squadron 42 has had release dates in the past, and they've been missed wildly because Squadron 42 still isn't out yet. So yeah, Chris didn't say when it was coming, but it is feature complete, which you would hope means it's coming soon in the next year or so. And they showed a very long trailer, just showing some cutscenes within Squadron 42, some gameplay. Again, it was amazing. It was really great to see that Squadron 42 is in a good state now, and it just stole the show at the very end. So that is without a doubt top S tier. So overall, I think it was a really strong 2 days. There's a lot of stuff to look forward to coming out over the next 12 months. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. This is my personal list of the things I'm most excited for. If you agree, if you disagree, please let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.